This is something that we are really honored and we are really privileged, and also we are thankful to Venerable Uparatan for taking this initiative and having this special Dharma meeting this evening at the university. And also I just want to convey our sincere appreciation and blessings to the Mahasangha for having organized this very special event, and also I wish to convey the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem to you all, and also for the spiritual well-being and success in our lives. So with these few words, once again, let me thank you all, and especially for the valuable presence of all the guests and all the invitees who are gathered here. And also will now commence the special Dhamma discourse and very, very special observances conducted by the scholars and the monks. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you.
Welcome to all of you. Good evening. In the name of the triple gems of the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, I am deeply honored as the Executive Vice President of the IBAA. I worked with our Vice Chairman, the Most Venerable Uparatna Mahathera, for the past 35 years. We know each other for a very long time. So all the visiting Sri Lankan venerables, the Venerable Dr. Sagaraguna and Venerable Atisukama from the Chinese Buddhist community, Venerable Sedong and his associate monk from the Korean Buddhist community, and Reverend Nam from the Korean Won Buddhist community, and last but not least, my very dear friend, Father Don Rooney, from the St. Bernadette parish here in Springfield, very, very special friend of us Buddhists. And we are gathered here today with the enormous kindness and goodwill of His Excellency, the Ambassador, the Honorable Mr. Pereira, the Ambassador of Sri Lanka to the United States. We welcome you, sir, and we deeply thank you on behalf of IBAA and also to Mrs. Pereira for having us here. And also with deeply and equally enormous goodwill, which I have communicated, and that is the person who spoke prior to me, the Most Honorable DCM, Mr. Dissanayake. Thank you again, sir, and all the staff and members of the Embassy of Sri Lanka, including the lady of the mission that I met, so warmly welcomed all of us. And thank you again, sincerely. So we will get going on the program. We would request Venerable Uparatna Mahathera, Vice Chairman of the IBA, and Venerable Sedong on behalf of the Mahayana tradition, as well as the Ambassador, to jointly come forward, light the lamp, and offer the flowers, and proceed.
took some word. Madam, is there anything else? Please come. Sir. You have one too. Doctor don't supposed to come, but that's all right. Yeah. Thanks, sir. I'll make a blessing for all of you. भवतु सब्ब मंगलं रक्षन्तु सब्ब देवता सब्ब बुद्धानुभावेन सदा सुखी भवन्तु ते भवतु सब्ब मंगलं रक्षन्तु सब्ब देवता सब्ब धम्मानुभावेन सदा सुखी भवन्तु ते भवतु सब्ब मंगलं रक्षन्तु सब्ब देवता सब्ब संगानुभावेन सदा सुखी Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
I now request the Senior Vice President of the IBAA, Dr. Samantan of the Cambodian Buddhist Society, to come forward and request the 5 precepts of the Mahasangha. Dr. Chun.
Okasama yang tante visung visamarakanataya Esaranenya saha panca sailani jajamya Ute yampe mayang tante visung visamarakanataya Esaranenya saha panca sailani jajamya Tak te yampe mayang konte visung rakhanataya Pesarane nya saha panca sailani yajamya Anuke hangkatwa sailante takno phante Yamahang vadami tang vadete Pamya phante Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa 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 Please keep it after me. Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi Dhammaṃ saranam gacchāmi Dhammaṃ saranam gacchāmi Sanghaṃ saranam gacchāmi Sanghaṃ saranam gacchāmi Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saranam gacchāmi Dutiyampi Sanghaṃ saranam gacchāmi Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saranam gacchāmi
Tatiyampi Sanghan Saranang Gacchami Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadan Samadhiyami Adinnadana Veramani Sikkhapadan Samadhiyami Amesu Miccācara Veramani Sikkhapadan Samadhiyami Musavada Veramani Sikkhapadan Samadhiyami Surameraya Majjapama Dattana Veramani Sikkhapadan Samadhiyami Tisaranena Saddhim Panchasilan Dhamman Sadhukan Surakkitan Kattva Apamadena Sampadeta Silena Sugating Yanti Silena Bhoga Sampada Silena Niputing Yanti Tasma Silang Visodhaye. With the respect to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, offering flowers, incense, light and all other puja items. With the blessing of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, we wish you all happy and peace, wonderful Dhamma time for all of you.
Thank you, Bhante. I'd like to take literally a couple of minutes to introduce some of the senior lay members of our organization. We have founding board member, Mr. Sukhsambun Saksena, who's seated right up there, who is from the Laotian Buddhist community, and he and I again have worked for another 40 years together. Mrs. Saksena, also Mrs. Mo from the Burmese Buddhist community. She's a member of the advisory council of the IBAA. And Ms. Tat Mom, also from the Burmese Buddhist community. She is also a member of the board of the IBAA. And we have Mrs. Tun, and of course the clergy, and the person who's taking that picture over there, also from the Chinese Buddhist community, David Liu. So we thank David as well for doing his job. And there's a lady seated out there, and her name is Mrs. Sheila H. H stands for Hebar, her husband. My son, sorry. So with that, we will begin with IBA requires that there should be 5 minutes of loving kindness meditation. So we request Bhante Uparatna to lead us in the loving kindness meditation.
Now we are momentarily sitting like that, and kindness, compassionate, very important, and keep concentrate your mind in the momentarily. We are sharing loving kindness thought loud to yourself and all other directions. Gently close your eyes, left hand or right hand. Just calm your mind and relax your body. Just aware what I am reciting the momentarily. May we be well, happy and peaceful. May no harm come to us. May no difficulties come to us. May no problems come to us. May we always meet with success. May we also have patience, courage, understanding and determination to meet and overcome inevitable difficulties, problems and failures in life. May our parents be well, happy and peaceful. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always meet with success. May they also have patience, courage, understanding and determination to meet and overcome inevitable difficulties, problems and failures in life. May our teachers be well, happy and peaceful. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always meet with success. may they also have patience, courage, understanding and determination to meet and overcome inevitable difficulties, problems and failures in life. May our relatives be well, happy and peaceful. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always meet with success. May they also have patience, courage, understanding and determination to meet and overcome inevitable difficulties, problems and failures in life. May indifferent persons be well, happy and peaceful. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always meet with success. May they also have patience, courage, understanding and determination to meet and overcome inevitable difficulties, problems and failures in life. May our friends be well, happy and peaceful. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always meet with success. May they also have patience, courage, understanding and determination to meet and overcome inevitable difficulties, problems and failures in life. May our enemies be well, happy and peaceful. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always meet with success. May they also have patience, courage, understanding and determination to meet and overcome inevitable difficulties, problems and failures in life. May all living beings be well, happy and peaceful. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always meet with success. May they also have patience, courage, understanding and determination to meet and overcome inevitable difficulties, problems and failures in life. Take a deep breath. Release it slowly. Stay this present moment with a kind thought, happy thought. Observe this very moment, right now, right here. Dukkha pattaca nindukha bhaya pattaca nibbhaya sokha pattaca nissoka hontu sabbepi anino. May you be all well, happy and peaceful. Thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Before we proceed with this evening's program, we request a quick Mahayana chanting from Venerable Sedong Sunim. Please, you can be seated where you are.
What we like to conduct is the blessing to all of sentient beings in a very traditional Korean chanting. 소소양등 한불전 비삼모예금선 국계안녕 병약소 천하대평 법륜전 헌화세세생생사 상업안녕물대전 여피문사 용행지 여피사나해각과 여피문소대지에 여피모양광대행 여피지
여피화능 삼미응 시방 세계 무고련 고령중생 인무위 문화 명자 변삼도 현아 영자 등의 달려시교왕사가 필경무불 육중대 산문숙정열비호 산해제양영소면 토지철령호 삼보 산신국사보정상 중등암령 등 비안세 세상행고살도 구경원성 살바 아만나미.
Father Rooney, Catholic prayer, very briefly, please.
Yeah. Almighty ever-living God, we pray this evening as one voice with your presence among us, that we might be blessed, that we might fulfill your loving will for all of mankind, and that we might, by our presence together, come closer and learn and find peace. We ask this through Christ our Lord.
Thank you, Venerable Sunims. Thank you, Father Rooney. Now, Venerable Uparatama Thera, our Vice Chairman, brief introductory Dhamma talk before we continue.
Venerable Mahasangha, clergy, Father Rooney, and Excellency Rodney Pereira, Madam, and rest of the embassy staff and our devotees represent. We wish all happy and peace. And today we are very delightful to have my country embassy, our ambassador, and all together to commemorate or celebrate our Buddhist learning skill, studying and learning. And many embassies in the city, we were not only for the IBAA, that is IBAA meeting 2 or 3 years now. That's a part of the community coordination and supporting and learning and sharing the Dhamma. That's a wonderful thing. And Professor Heba has dedicated his energy and to promote the Dhamma, and his Dhamma teacher also a very respectable University of George Washington University, and that is a kind of blessing for us to his promoting this great thing and coordinating all Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana, all yanas together. And we are keeping, because the name of the religious, sometimes they go to temples or church, they don't study more details at the temple or synagogue or the church or wherever they go, just for pray and just they come back. But the thing is, what the spiritual teaching we have to discuss. That's the time, because a lot of problems in the world day to day, our young society especially, they have a lot of things are no answer for it. That's why they are away from the church and temples these days. The kind of educate people and together, work together, make a nice bridge, our wisdom community and the young generation, and the temples and synagogue and all this organization can do it. That IBAA had the just non-profit organization, but we need the more young people to work, no matter whatever skill they have. This is a completely volunteer base, and they do it east and west, Parita chanting on the Tripitaka chanting and the Mahayana chanting. The last month, our Venerable Zen Center Chinese temple, we had the great chanting, which is our Excellency's arriving day. Our embassy staff missed that event, but however, they were had intention to attend, but it worked out. And maybe, so one thing is, Sri Lanka, we don't have big temples, but we have big community. But the thing is that they are asking 2020 to Tripitaka chanting Wheaton Buddhist temple. I don't know how to do it. Our embassy staff and our regular temple devotees, if they are make a commitment, we can do it. That's a wonderful thing with its original Buddha's teaching, chanting Theravada, Mahayana and all together. That's good meritorial activities. If possible, that would be so great. So we are today learning the Dhamma, practicing the Dhamma, and sharing the Dhamma. That's the purpose of this meeting, and the accommodate our Sri Lankan Buddhist country and Buddhist. That we are in our country, Buddhist, Muslim, Hindu, Catholic, Christian together. We work together, but that's the great strength. Together we work, we understand each other, their faith and practice. So this is a good chance to us to live together, work together, give the peace voice to the world, and we are working with the Dhamma. So thank you so much for giving opportunity to do just a remark, and please continue the rest of your program. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante. The main Dhamma talk will be given by Venerable Dr. Sagaraguna from the Chinese Buddhist community. Venerable Dr. Sagaraguna, please, if you want the facility of the PowerPoint is also there.
Bhantes, Venerables, Your Excellency, Madam, and ladies and gentlemen. I was cleaning over this room earlier. I see quite a lot of frequent faces. For those frequent faces, my compliment. Your sheer presence here speaks volume of your support of the Buddha Dhamma. I have also seen some fresh faces. To those fresh faces, my congratulations. It's a rare opportunity that we can sit in this kind of room and share the Dhamma. Like Dr. Rabai just pointed out, we have a tight schedule, and I'd like to concentrate on my presentation as concise as possible. You can see my topic tonight is about fear, or bhaya. Now there are quite a lot of terms speaking about terror or being afraid of something. Because of time limitation, I would like to concentrate on the term fear for very good reasons. That this is a kind of human emotion, that nothing new with any human. But you will wonder why this emotion is so persistent and so pervasive. In particular, as Buddhists, we would also like to know, for me as a monastic, it is particularly intriguing to find out what has been done from the Buddhist perspective. And it'd be interesting to start from the notion itself. What are we afraid of? The first line already said it. You name it, everything. But that doesn't help much. Instead, let's narrow down. You might be afraid of aging, death. I see some younger folks here. Probably aging and death is a far remote concern for you. For those already past the half lifespan, people like me, okay, aging and death is almost imminent. Death is certain. Therefore, we are not particularly concerned about it. But many people have great, extensive anxiousness about how and when. For some people, it becomes a disorder. When that happens, that's the kind of fear we're talking about, almost a phobia. It could include, say, sudden abandonment, maybe by your employer, you're losing your job. Maybe you're being evicted by your landlord. You could also face certain kind of financial ruin. In 2008, many of you still have fresh memory. That happens to almost every household. It's a common experience. You also, people may be afraid of noises, any sort. The good news is that you are not alone. As you can see the number there, in America alone, you have 99 million people being affected by some kind of fear in their lives. Among those 99 million, you have 19 million evolved into a kind of disorder. Not much of the good news, because the bad news you want to ask, since it's so pervasive, how come nobody's doing something to it? Well, actually, doctors are doing everything they could, but the problem is that the very subject matter can be anything, and there is no immediate cure. So, many people turn to spiritual development or spiritual healing, and they are asking what Buddhism can offer. And actually, I can tell you personally, I have encountered lots of those kind of questions. Typical, you might want to say, psychological approach would be two kinds. They have summarized that people facing this kind of fear or phobia will be either fight or flight. You can't fight it, you can't win, so admit you're weak. Or you fight it, as the picture will show you. Come over, take it out. Neither, and at least as far as modern medicine and technology is concerned, neither can solve the problem effectively. The Buddhist way would think it otherwise. We consider this as a distortion of mind. Some of you probably quite familiar with Abhidhamma, that you would be interesting to know, perhaps you have already found out, that fear in Abhidhamma was not considered as an inherent mental factor. What is inherent in the mind would be clear seeing, okay, which paves the way for our eventual emancipation, make it possible. But fear, it comes and goes. Then it logically follows that since the emotion comes and goes, it's just like any feeling. People who have been cultivating the four foundations of mindfulness would quickly grasp what I'm talking about. Okay, we can find other opportunity to talk about that. So the essence about the question is that it's a distortion of the mind. See this? What does it look like? Snake. Well, you're right, because that rope is particularly called snake rope. And to the right, that's a real snake. If I'm not pointing this out, it could be real for you, the close snake. So this question sometimes can be perception. You misinterpreted the information. It's the problem decoding. So in a dark room, you'll see that really as a snake. Sometimes it's conceptual. You really don't see things clearly, understand it clearly. This has closer relationship with what we call the meditation of insight. Okay, again, time limitation does not allow me to go into details of that. But let's stick to the essential. Since it's a distortion of the mind, therefore we can do something about it. Like what then? I have highlighted this particular list because it's interesting to at least dig into the details. In Buddhism, we have a tradition when introducing a particular phenomena, or let's say human experience, especially for people who have failed previously to understand it in the correct way. We would first introduce the flavor, or if you will, the characteristic of that phenomenon. Then we'll introduce what's the peril, what's the potential problem if you don't see it correctly. And then we'll introduce what's the most effective way to stay clean from that particular perception. So let's start from the characteristic. Fear. For purposes obviously to make it impressive to you, I've chosen the radical type of fear called phobia. When phobia happens, it means the distortion of mind is almost pushed to the extreme. The people would take every measure to avoid encountering something. According to American Psychological Association, that people are not so much of wanting to stay away from the event, say, assuming I have a phobia of water, and it creates great anxiety inside of me. People will try to avoid that. But listen to this carefully. People were not so much about trying to avoid the water versus they were trying to avoid experiencing that anxiety in their mind. So really, the object is not the crux of the issue. It's the mental experience. And this leaves great open, really, leaves great opportunity for Buddhism to help them. Because, actually you can find this in the Majjhima Nikaya. There's a whole sutra introducing how to deal with fear. Insight meditation is the key. End of story. I can go home happily. That doesn't help you. So let's start from the beginning, looking at it. Here is the list of phobia. You could be afraid of heights. Me, as a youngster, 30 years ago, that's me, no longer. People afraid of flying, spiders, lightning, in particular, crowded spaces. Sometimes people, even in this kind of space, they start to feel frightened, shaken uncontrollably. For other people who do not experience the phobia, they think this is irrational. Experience has never been rational. We don't judge people by whether or not their experience is rational. More importantly, how do we help them? Okay? So, see that highlighted red? All these phobia have one common factor, if you will. It starts from who? Because you have this I view. I am feeling the anxiety. I don't want this. I'm afraid of that. It all starts from this, the so-called identity view. Again, with time limitation, I cannot go into the details, but that is the first thing you want to stay clean. And for people who are able to break away from that identity view, you are already almost into the stream of stay clean from samsara. That's the Pali teaching. So, as a notion, it's important to point out this is about emotional quality. Now, fear of the object is easier to understand. This particular notion, introduced by the Buddha himself during a dialogue when he was talking to the king. The king challenged him, said, Lanka, is it true that I have heard you have taught people that you suffer because you have affection? The Buddha replied, it is true, I did teach that. And the king wasn't certainly not convinced at all. Then the Buddha asked him, Great king, do you love your children? Yes. Then do you feel sorrow when your child died? Of course. Then isn't it true, because of your affection, you experience the suffering? logically, you would really have to admit this. Then is it true then, following this logic, it is because of passion, either mental type or physical type, that really leads to your suffering from either losing something or not getting something? This is how we reason with the emotion. Earlier, I have pointed out, using that water as an example, the phobia is really not about the object, but the mental reaction. So that really coincided well with Buddha's elaboration about how affection or passion affected people. So we don't have to go through the text because of time limitations. Let's move on to the next notion. Since we have properly, I hope properly, introduced the major characteristic of fear, let's go on bringing it up above the individual level, see how about social phenomena. There you see, there's a very interesting dialogue between an anthropologist and a shaman in Alaska. The anthropologist is very interested in knowing how about you, what kind of belief system that you Alaskan people have. We, as anthropologists, would like to know. That question really left the shaman to scratch his head. He paused really a long time and eventually said, "Look, doctor, we don't believe, we fear." And that really speaks volume about, from an anthropological point of view, about primitive religion. People, for those things, especially natural powers, lightning, flooding, volcano eruption, those beyond their control, they have a natural fear because it's out of their control. And this oftentimes evolved into primitive religion. The Buddhism, or for Christianity, or other established major religion, we have gone beyond surpassing the primitive fear. Instead, we believe in love that can overcome the fear. We believe in harmony that can also, at least partially, relieve that kind of fear. But is this a question about the maturity of human development that eventually we consider something more important than natural power? No, from a Buddhist point of view, that is beyond the point. Instead, here is the logic, interesting part. At the beginning of this Dharma gathering, we were seeking refuge in the Dharma, Sangha, and Buddha. Ask yourself, when would a human being seeking refuge? It starts from when you are afraid of something beyond your control. So fear, in this sense, may not be a negative quality. You really do need certain kind of fear for you to start seeking for truth or seeking for refuge. So the Buddhist idea, instead of flight or fight, we transform negative quality into something constructive. I see several people here recently attended the insight meditation from our temple. You would know that feeling, especially painful feeling, is a very useful tool for you to see directly what is the nature of impermanence. Precisely here. Okay, so being afraid of something beyond control is not a problem. The Buddhist idea is more constructive, admitting that kind of reaction as our weakness and decide to do something about it. So it is action-oriented. Of course, avoiding the experience doesn't solve the problem. We don't encourage that. Then what better option do we have? The key is recognizing the phenomenon correctly. I want to emphasize this again so that it becomes your point to take home. It's about emotional reaction towards something. The stimuli provided by the sutra is quite straightforward. Consider your feeling as a guest house. The guest house can be very busy, but always they are guests. In a guest house, there is no permanent residence, so don't make them your permanent residence. So hopefully that's a useful tool. Here I am citing the sutra directly. Whoever here transcends sensual pleasure, be it mental part or physical part, and attachment, hard to overcome, and yet you are able to do that, then you are free from sorrow and anxiety. He has caught the stream of wishes. He is free from bonds. At least, to say the least, you have achieved the first fruit of arahantship. So, that means adversities is actually a type of blessing disguised. And you can really turn a kind of adversity into the work of Dharma. Pain is just one example. Consider your personal relationship with other human beings. That can be really a pain, okay? And how do you deal with it? It can even be a phobia that I really hate this coworker. I don't want to see him or her. Seeing that person ruins my entire day. How do you deal with it? Here offers a very good example. Treat it as a demon that try to ruin your wholesome heart. Demon need not be afraid of. Instead, once you recognize the essence of reality, they are gone. That's the Buddhist perspective. Of course, it doesn't happen just like that. It takes long time practices. Okay? So, the proper path, like I said earlier, is really through taking the path. Under Buddhist context, this particular statement refers specifically to meditative practices, among other things. Only after you have cultivated the proper mental quality were you able to deal with your daily difficulties in the right path. So, fearlessness is a quality that can be and should be cultivated. It's not a given. And I can skip this because of time limitation. I would prefer to reserve more time for other variables. It is important to also point out among the great virtues repeatedly over time praised by Buddhist followers, one of them is that why we call him Buddha, because he has the quality of leading other people out of their fear. Although this particular topic of fear has not been singled out as the single most important factor of people to achieve enlightenment, but it's pervasive enough, and really you need to look at what you have been neglected. And finally, just as a broader perspective for you to consider, not just the Theravada Buddhism emphasizing the importance about cultivating your mental quality and dealing with fear. Even other yanas, say Vajrayana, who emphasizes the presence and aspiration of the Adi-Buddha. Here is his prayer. Take a look. The mind subtly stirred up by fear of external appearances builds up habitual patterns of aversion, which is the root of fear, which then gives rise to enmity, aggression, and massacre. More importantly, in the later part, when the fruit of bitter hatred ripens, one goes through the scorching pains of hell. I, the Buddha, the other Buddha, pray that whenever any sentient beings in the six places of rebirth experiences intense aversion, may they release it without repressing or pursuing it, and when they contacted their natural state of knowing, see that? Insight knowledge, may they attain the knowledge of clarity. When that happens, you are enlightened, you are free. So this will be my final sharing of Dhamma with all of you. Now, for those of you who can identify the useful clues from my presentation, go on digging it up. For those of you who maybe been first time being exposed to Buddhism, this is just a short introductory presentation. I'm more than happy to answer your question, and maybe after this Dhamma talk. Thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sadhu, for presenting this insightful Dhamma talk. The Abhidharma is something that is one of my very close friends. He was Professor Jyoti Dhirasekara, who eventually became a monk, Bhante Dhamma Vihari. And I used to always tell, once I met him in Toronto, Canada, where he had come, and he said, if you want to understand the Abhidharma, bring yourself a big jar of water, because after the first 2 pages you need to put cold water on it. It is tough as nails. It's an extraordinary. I now request Venerable Sedum Sunim from the Korean Buddhist community to come and give the next Dharma talk, and he has a master's from Harvard University, sir. So, Venerable.
Good evening, everyone. Since I'm new here, I'd like to introduce myself first. My Dharma name is Hedun. I'm from South Korea. I'm a new Ebola Walker's Temple in Fairfax, Virginia. I moved in Virginia 2 months ago, so before I moved in, I didn't really know that there would be so many Buddhist communities actively engaged here in this metro area. So having met with all brothers and sisters of Buddhist communities, I feel that I have sort of good backing and feel assured in a way. So I try my best to do the same to all of my brothers and sisters of Buddhist community and give you back the same comfort that I got from you. It is my honor and privilege to be invited here at very, very special Dharma meeting. And many thanks to all of IBAA members and especially His Excellency the Ambassador Pera, the Madam Ambassador, and all staff members of Embassy of Sri Lanka for giving me this special opportunity to share and talk about the Buddha's teachings, which is interpreted by Mahayana tradition. My Dharma talk is very short, so yeah. Today I'd like to talk about one of the most distinctive traits of Mahayana Buddhism. There is a figure that epitomizes the value of Mahayana and also pretty much summarizes the spirit of Mahayana teaching, which is Bodhisattva. So if you want to know what Mahayana is all about, you just take a look at how Mahayana interprets the notion of Bodhisattva. The simplest way is just Google it. So how blessed we are. Dharma is everywhere. Back in the day, if you want to learn about Christianity or Catholicism or Buddhism, you probably impossible to learn if you don't go to that places. But now you can actually just click, then you can learn about Christianity and all religions and all isms. So how blessed we are, and I'm really grateful for that. By the way, as many of you already know, Bodhisattva is the one that practices unconditional compassion in order to achieve Buddhahood. So what I think that is worth paying attention when we talk about Bodhisattva is the way the Mahayana tradition conceives it, and how Mahayana interprets the role of Bodhisattva in this world we live in, which is very interesting and unique and practical in my point of view. Because Mahayana tradition does not only see Bodhisattva as the one who has made a resolution to become a Buddha, in a way, a premature spiritual stage before becoming a Buddha. But Mahayana sees Bodhisattva as a being that, even though oneself is not good enough or imperfect to become a Buddha, but by trying to fill up a lacuna or shortcomings of oneself, one ultimately not only benefits oneself, but also benefits others as well. So I want to attention to this imperfectness, which many of us might be frustrated by and think it as disadvantage in a way. But when we flip it around, facing our imperfectness with positive attitude, not taking it as an obstacle that gets in our way, that hinders from achieving the goals, that it will be transformed into a great accelerator for us to achieve our goals. Just like Bodhisattva who try to embrace their imperfections with compassion rather than despair. Buddhism often describes our world as Saha world, the endurance world, where sentient beings must endure the suffering. But Mahayana suggests that confronting rather than avoiding it. Indeed, our world is full of suffering. However, we must not be frustrated by it. But in fact, there is no reason to be frustrated by it. If the world we live in is full of suffering, we can replace it with the Buddha's wisdom and compassion. If the world we live in is not good, we can make it a better place through practicing 6 paramitas. Not in somewhere else or some other time. Right here, right now, we can make it happen. That's the spirit of Bodhisattva. How Mahayana solves the problem is embrace the sufferings, confront the sufferings, and transform the suffering into something good. That's why earlier I said that the Mahayana interprets Buddha's teaching is practical. Because Mahayana asks us to make this shore great and beautiful, rather than crossing over to the other shore. We don't know why we are thrown into this endurance world, but the situation is already given to us. So let's rather face than avoid it. So in my short knowledge, the job the embassy does is to solve complicated issues between nations through reconciliation and dialogue. Although all nations have their own national interests, but by making compromise with each other, making a concession to each other, and finding a common ground, then ultimately we could make this world healthier, more prosperous, and more peaceful. That's right, to make this shore great and beautiful. So in that sense, what the embassies of nations from all over the world are doing here in DC, which is involved with pragmatic approaches, directly corresponds to what the Mahayana Bodhisattvas do for this world. So in this world, there are many sentient beings who are suffering from soteriological thirst, but also there are many sentient beings who are suffering from pragmatic thirst. Mahayana Buddhism points out that we Buddhists sometimes neglect those who are suffering from pragmatic thirst. They can be saved here in this shore. So let's be Bodhisattva for them. I think this is the role of Bodhisattva in our society that Mahayana pursues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Venerable Sedum Sunim, for your kind presentation. I now request Reverend Nam from the One Buddhist community to do her presentation. I think the USB needs to be.
Hello everyone. My name is Unju Nam. I'm from the One Buddhist Temple. I'm so honored to be invited here in this place. His Excellency, Madam President, and all the Bhante and moms. Thanks for ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me here. I'm from the One Buddhist tradition. Before my presentation, I want to briefly introduce what is One Buddhism. One Buddhism literally means the circle Buddhism. You can see the circle in my love. So One Buddhism was originated from Korea, South Korea, about 100 years ago. Our founding master, he was seeking for the truth by his own, and he, about 20 years of searching for the truth, he got enlightened, and he found out all the religious texts and scriptures from other religions, and he found out that, oh, my awakening and the Buddha's teaching is pretty similar, and he wanna build a Buddhist study association at that time to bring the Buddhist teachings to the contemporary society, to the modern and kind of reformed, make a reformed Buddhism. So One Buddhism, we are learning the Buddhist teachings, and we wanna bring all the Buddhist teachings to our very practical way to our daily life. So I brought this topic for tonight: the essential dharmas of daily practice. This is our this contains all of the essential teachings from the One Buddhism. So I want to briefly introduce what it was and what it is. So our second head Dharma master, Chong San, he said, if you read and put into practice the essential dharmas of daily practice your whole life, then that will be sufficient for attaining to Buddhahood. So as I mentioned, One Buddhism is kind of reformed Buddhism, and our founding master drew the circle as a symbol of the truth, the universal truth. We called it Il-One Sound, the one circle image. So Il-One is origin of all things in the universe and the original nature of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, ordinary humans and sentient beings. So in order to realize and in order to actualize the Buddha's mind and our original mind in our daily life, we have 9 essential dharmas of daily practice. I will read 9 dharmas all. 1. The mind ground is originally free from disturbance, but disturbances arise in response to sensory conditions. Let us restore the absorption, samadhi of our original nature by letting go of those disturbances. 2. The mind ground is originally free from delusion, but delusions arise in response to sensory conditions. Let us restore the wisdom, prajna of our original nature by letting go of those delusions. 3. The mind ground is originally free from wrongdoing. Wrongdoings arise in response to sensory conditions. Let us restore the precepts, sila of our original nature by letting go of those wrongdoings. Let us remove disbelief, greed, laziness, and ignorance by means of belief, zeal, questioning, and dedication. Let us turn a life of resentment into a life of gratitude. Let us turn a life of dependency into a life of self-reliance. Let us turn a reluctance to learn into a willingness to learn well. Let us turn a reluctance to teach into a willingness to teach well. Let us turn a lack of Holy Spirit into an eagerness for the universal good. That's all about our practice in one illustration. It is the way to manifest, as monk said, the way to practice the Bodhisattva's way in this contemporary society, in your daily life, in this moment. So, our founding master Suta-san said, the purpose of having you recite the essential dharmas of daily practice in the morning and evening does not lie in simply reciting the words. Rather, it is intended to help you grasp their meaning in your heart and accept it in your mind. Reviewing them generally once a day and more specifically examining them each time you are faced with sensory conditions. So whenever your mind is arise, something arises in your mind, that is the time to revisit and review the essential dharmas. So you must assess and check your mind over and over to see whether or not your mind ground is disturbed, deluded, or subject to wrongdoing. Whether or not you have been making active progress in belief, zeal, questioning, and dedication. Whether or not you have been living in gratitude, living a life of self-power, readily learning, readily teaching, and benefit others. You must do this until ultimately you reach the state in which the mind needs no checking. It is said that a person's mind is so extremely subtle that it exists when you take hold of it, but disappears when you let it go. How then can a person cultivate one's mind without checking it? So I'm gonna briefly review what each content has the meaning. So number 1, 2, 3 is condensed into I condensed into the one slide. The mind ground is originally free from disturbance, delusion, and wrongdoing. But disturbances, delusions, and wrongdoings arise in response to sensory conditions. We need to understand both state of mind. Our mind is originally free from all of these disturbances, delusions, and wrongdoings, but at the same time, our mind is so subtle, and our mind is not perfect, it's imperfect. So all the disturbances, delusions, and wrongdoings arise in response to sensory conditions. So here is the point that we have to practice in every moment. Let us restore the obstruction, samadhi, and wisdom, prajna, and the precepts, sila, of our original nature. Our original nature have already that kind of qualities. So by restoring, by maintaining the qualities of our mind, our original nature, we can let go of all the disturbances, delusions, and wrongdoing. That's the beginning point and very foundation of your daily practice. So from your inside your mind, we are going out to the world. So next one is the eight, we call it 8 articles from our traditions. Let us remove disbelief, greed, laziness, and ignorance by means of belief, zeal, questioning, and meditation. So what kind of faith or what kind of belief do you have in your mind? It is not, I'm not asking you what kind of religion you have, but whatever you have in your mind, that could be your belief. You come here tonight because you believe this meeting is valuable for you. And you are acting following your own belief. Whatever belief system you have in your mind, that's the foundation of yourself. So we need to check what kind of belief I have in my mind. And then with the right belief, with the correct belief, we need a passion to keep that in mind with the zeal. And next one is questioning. Maybe some of the religions are not allowed to question about some teachings, but we encourage many questions. If we do not question something, we can fall into the false notions, and we could be maybe blinded face something. So we always questioning, where am I and where I'm heading to? So that question is pretty important and necessary values for achieving the Buddhahood and dedication. Or it can be translated in perseverance. So you need to keep following those qualities and not lazy to do practice in your daily life. And once you recovered your Buddha nature, the quality of your Buddha nature, the threefold study, and once you keep following the 8 articles to cultivate your belief, zeal, questioning, and dedication, then we will realize that we are all already so much blessed from all of the universe. So that is pretty. The number 5 is the core value of our teachings. So once I realize we are grateful beings, we are already so many things getting from the universe, from heaven and earth, from our parents. Our parents gave us this body to live and to manifest in this world, and all the fellow beings and the laws. So I realized that we are so much blessed and so much grateful for given a lot of given graces from the universe. Then we need to pay back, or we need to requite this grace to the universe and to whom who are give us that kind of grace. So from number 6 to 9, it's all about the way to kind of pay back the grace to the society and universe. First value is we need to turn the life of dependency into a life of self-reliance. Since we have the Buddha nature within all of us. So we are just recover. We are just returned, and we are just very grounded ourselves. Then we could meet the Buddha within all of us. So we are. So that's why Sufi-san, our Master Sufi-san, emphasized on that cultivating the self-power, not relying on something else outside of you. You already have that quality within you. Buddha nature already perfectly innate yourself. So by recovering and by returning, by grounding yourself deeply, then we have a foundation to go act somewhere. And number 7 and 8 is about learning and teaching. So we are recover our self-power. We need to learn. There are so many things we have to learn. We are not perfect being. We are imperfect. We need to close to be perfect by learning so many things from almost everywhere. So we have to learn the Dharma. We have to learn all the teachings, and we have to learn all the universal principles and human affairs. We could expand our knowledge, and we could remove all the ignorant and delusions we have within ourselves. And then we need to share. Learning and then share by teaching to others. Thus, the teaching and educate others is the way to evolve the human beings infinitely. There's no limitation, and there's no resistance to teach as much as we can. That's the way. That's the way to practice the Bodhisattva spirit. And then finally, we need to cultivate the public spirit. That means we are already, once we truly know who we are and what we are not separate being from others. We can recover our universal consciousness. Then just we believe what we are. So let us turn like a public spirit into the agonist for the universal good is the kind of finer goal or finer purpose of our practice. So by repeating this 9 essential dharmas of daily practice in every day, we could realize the Buddha nature, and we could build the real paradise, real heaven on this earth, not somewhere else after death or in third place. So all the teachings return to this Ilwan song, Ilwan, the circle, the truth of the universe and the Buddha nature within all of us. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Reverend Nam, for a great lecture. We had gone to IBAA, had gone to her temple just prior to this event, and she's always so welcoming and wonderful. The whole aspect in terms of that we need to turn a life of reluctance to a life of gratitude, I think is a very, very important message, because one of my teachers used to always say, when you get up in the morning, you have 10 fingers and the nose where they're supposed to be happy. There's nobody has written you a promissory note that they should be there. So gratitude is very important. We are born into a context, live in a context, and die in a context. And that sense of gratitude is very, very important. Last but not least, we have our dear friend, Father Rooney. Let me tell you some goodness about Father Rooney. there was a Tibetan Buddhist group that was looking for a place, and that's Mishan Goy there, and look at the goodness of Father Rooney. He said, you can have my church, and you can have it, you don't have to pay me a single cent. Why should I say this? Because it is important. When people do good, their goodness should be advertised. We are very keen on advertising the ill will of people. I think we should advertise loudly the goodness so that that goodness spreads. That's what IBAA is all about, to protect, to promote, and preserve the Buddha Dharma. So he is one of us, and we always look upon him in that. Father Rooney, please, sir.
Thank you, my venerable friends, Your Excellency, brothers and sisters. When Professor Hebar put me down on the agenda tonight for a 15-minute homily, I thought, well, I never go more than 7 or 8 when I'm in church. Seems kind of excessive, but as I was listening to all the wonderful presentations this evening, I think I want to start with a little bit of a homily and then move into the text that I had prepared, because the reading that we have in the Catholic Church this weekend is very pertinent. And in the Catholic Church, a homily means a development or an exposition of the scriptures that we just heard. It's got to be always tied to the scriptures. So the scripture for tonight and tomorrow in the Catholic Church comes from the Gospel of St. Luke. There was a scholar of the law who stood up to test Jesus and said, "Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus said to him, "What is written in the law? How do you read it?" He said in reply, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your being, with all your strength, with all your mind, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself." Jesus replied to him, "You have answered correctly. Do this, and you will live." But because the man wished to justify himself, he said to Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Jesus replied with a parable. A man fell victim to robbers as he went down from Jerusalem to Jericho. They stripped and beat him and went off, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down that road, but when he saw him, he passed by on the opposite side. Likewise, a Levite came to the place, and when he saw him, he passed by on the opposite side. But a Samaritan traveler who came upon him was moved with compassion at the sight. He approached the victim, poured oil and wine over his wounds, and bandaged him. Then he lifted him onto his own animal, took him to an inn, and cared for him. The next day he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper with the instruction, "Take care of him. If you spend more than what I have given you, I shall repay you on my way back." And then Jesus asks, "Which of these 3, in your opinion, was neighbor to the robber's victim?" And the man answered, "The one who treated him with mercy." Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise." So I'm preaching tomorrow on who is our neighbor. You know, the way our country's going right now, we don't want any neighbors, do we? Not in my backyard. That's what we're, not in my neighborhood. And so we find ourselves dealing with this question. Especially in Northern Virginia. I'm a pastor at St. Bernadette Catholic Church in Springfield, Virginia, but I'm also re-elected recently as the president. Every Catholic diocese in the United States has an ecumenical and interreligious officer who's responsible for relations with people of other religions and other churches. And so I was just recently re-elected as the national president of the directors of all the dioceses in the United States. So it's I've got kind of a weird job, really. It's kind of big. And a pastor of about 11,000 people in Springfield, Virginia. But who is our neighbor is the question. Our neighbor is somebody we don't get to choose. And so when we look, I'm going to do something really quick here, but in Christian theology, there are things like angels and demons in our cosmology of God's creation, right? I think that's the same, right? Angels and demons. But when we talk about evil, it's not active. evil, which would be the opposite of goodness, that's a transcendental. So we have three transcendentals: what is good, what is true, and what is beautiful. And everything participates in those in God's creation. And so when we talk about evil, that we say evil is a lack or an absence of a goodness that's supposed to be there. It's something that's contrary to the nature of creation. It's supposed to be a goodness, but it's not there. And in the same way, we say fear is an absence of a love that's supposed to be there, right? They're not opposites, but they're just like the extreme of the same reality, right? So St. Paul says that any kind of fear you have is simply a lack of love. St. John of the Cross, he was a Catholic mystic from the 16th century in Spain. He said, "Where there is no love, let me put love, and there I will find love." So this kind of idea that we choose whether or not we're afraid. We choose whether or not we embrace what we are afraid of, and then it becomes the beloved, right? So it's a beautiful transition. So now I'm going to shift to what I prepared for this thing, because I called you all brothers and sisters in a particular way tonight, because I wanted to give a little bit of a summary of a couple of statements of Pope Francis, and then some teaching of the Catholic Church. He taught about fraternity when he was in Abu Dhabi last February. And he says, and I'm kind of paraphrasing this so it goes quickly, "The enemy of fraternity is an individualism which translates into the desire to affirm oneself and not one's group above others. This danger threatens all aspects of life, even the highest innate prerogative of mankind, that is, the openness to the transcendent and to religious piety. True religious piety consists in loving God with all one's heart and one's neighbor as oneself. Religious behavior, therefore, needs continually to be purified from the recurrent temptation to judge others as enemies and adversaries. Each belief system is called to overcome the divide between friends and enemies in order to take up the perspective of heaven, which embraces persons without privilege or discrimination." So even here now, you see on that same spectrum, we have friends and enemies. If you have an enemy and you decide to embrace your enemy, the enemy becomes a friend. It's that simple. It's all about whether or not we want to enter into dialogue. We are called to work together in countering trends of extremism, hate, intolerance, and violence. This is the conviction of the Catholic Church. We cannot truly call on God, the Father of all, if we refuse to treat in a brotherly way any person created as they are in the image of God. He's quoting Nostra Aetate, 1965, the Second Vatican Council. If we believe in the existence of the human family, it follows that it must, as such, be looked after. As in every family, this happens above all through a daily and effective dialogue. This presupposes having one's own identity, not to be foregone to please the other person, but at the same time, it demands the courage of otherness. This is his phrase for this particular document that's so intriguing. The courage of otherness, which involves the full recognition of the other and his or her freedom, and the consequent commitment to exert myself so that the other person's fundamental rights are always affirmed, everywhere and by everyone. Without freedom, we are no longer children of the human family, but we have become slaves. The courage of otherness is the heart of dialogue. In all this, prayer is essential, while sincerely intended prayer incarnates the courage of otherness in regard to God. It also purifies our hearts from turning in on ourselves. Prayer of the heart restores fraternity. Consequently, as for the future of interreligious dialogue, the first thing we have to do is pray. And I think we're going to put together an interfaith prayer service, right? August 25th, everyone's invited to St. Bernadette's from 2:30 to 4. 2:30 to 4 in the afternoon, Sunday afternoon. Without the Lord, nothing is possible, and with him, everything becomes so. So may our prayer, each one according to his or her own tradition, adhere fully to the will of God, who wants all people to recognize that they are brothers and sisters, and live as such, forming the great human family in the harmony of diversity. There is no alternative. We will either build the future together, or there will not be a future. That's a strong statement. We will either build the future together or there will not be a future. Religions in particular cannot renounce the urgent task of building bridges between peoples and cultures. The time has come when religions should more actively exert themselves with courage and audacity and without pretense to help the human family deepen the capacity for reconciliation, the vision for hope, and the concrete paths of peace. I have another thing here, but it's from 1965. There was a document only until 1965 that even would allow me to be here with you tonight, right? I mean, this was mortal sin prior to the Second Vatican Council, so thanks be to God for Vatican II. And so, but I'm going to skip that part just for the interest of time. Okay, so the Church therefore exhorts her sons and daughters that through dialogue and collaboration with the followers of other religions, carried out with prudence and love, in witness to the Christian faith and life, and their faith and life, to recognize, preserve, and promote the good things, spiritual and moral, as well as the socio-cultural values found among these peoples. We cannot truly call on God the Father of all if we refuse to treat each other as brothers and sisters. Okay. Now, part of a 1979 homily, there was this priest in Saginaw, or bishop in Saginaw, Michigan, who was pretty famous. He was so down to earth. He just always had a good message. People loved to listen to this bishop preach. His name was Ken Untener, and he was the preacher of the papal household in Rome. So he was a good preacher. And Pope Francis quoted a homily of his from 1979 to the Roman Curia when he was trying to clean house in Rome. And this is part of this homily of this Father Untener. This is what we are about. We plant the seeds that one day will grow. We water the seeds already planted, knowing that they hold future promise. We lay foundations that will need further development. We provide yeast that produces far beyond our capacities. We cannot do everything, and there is a sense of liberation in realizing that. This enables us to do something, and to do it well. It may be incomplete, but it is a beginning, a step along the way, an opportunity for the Lord's grace to enter and to do the rest. We may never see the end results, but that is the difference between the master builder and the worker, or the workers. Ministers, not messiahs, he said. We are prophets of a future that is not our own. That same year that he gave that talk to the Roman Curia, I was part of a delegation of Buddhists and Catholics in dialogue, a meeting in Rome, as was Bhante Uparatna, who was there with us. We were granted a private audience with Pope Francis. He had a very short message for us as related to this homily. He told us the work you do is so important. So you were there too, Savan was there too.
Yes.
The work you do is so important. Work together for peace. Work together to end suffering. Share your life and water the seeds. So that's what I say, let's water the seeds. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Father Rooney, for your excellent homily. As they say, the French rabbi, medieval French rabbi Rashi, that was his acronym, Rabbi Shlomo ben Yitzhak, was asked by one of his students, what is the creed and what's the conduct of the Bible? He said, the first one, the creed, is in Deuteronomy 6:4. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. I hope my Hebrew is good. With Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one God. That's the creed. And you want the conduct. That's what Father Rooney quoted very briefly. Leviticus 19:18, which is what? Love thy neighbor as thyself. So that's the creed and the conduct. If you know these two, the rest of the Bible is a commentary on these two verses. That's all there is to it. You can go home. So if you don't do these two, then no matter how many times you read the Bible backward, forward, up and down, it's not going to work. So especially that conduct, because that's, even in our tradition, the Noble Eightfold Path is just three. What Reverend Nam said, Panya Sila Samadhi. That is, the acquisition of wisdom must go hand in hand with the cultivation of morality, and lastly, the practice of meditation. Besides, everything else is besides the point. So that's what it. We will come to the denouement of the program for the protection of all of us. Protection is very important. That's Venerable Dr. Sadhguru Guna said, and that is the paritha. Paritha means protection. Protection from fear, protection from suffering, dukkha, and protection from disease. And I request our founding board member from the Laotian Buddhist community, my dear friend, who worked for the State Department for 40 years as the Lao Thai translator, Mr. Suksambun Sai Sitsena, to come and request the paritha from the Mahasangha. Mr. Suksambun.
Venerable allowed me to use the microphone up here. Normally, it would be on the floor doing that. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Pipati patipahaya sappa sampati siddhya. Sappa dukkha vinasaya paritang pruta mangalang. Vipati patipahaya sappa sampati siddhya. Sappa paya vinasaya paritang pruta mangalang. Vipati patipahaya sappa sampati siddhya. Sappa roga vinasaya paritang pruta mangalang. Arathanang garoma sadu.
Samanta Chakravalesu Atra Gacchantu Devata Paritam Muni Rajasa Sunantu Sagga Mokkadang Parita Savana Kalo Ayam Bhadanta Parita Savana Kalo Ayam Badanta Parit Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Badanta Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Iti piso bhagava arahan samma sambuddho vidyacharana sampanno sugato lokavidu anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati. Satta deva manussanam buddho bhagavati. Swakato bhagavata dhammo sanditthiko akaliko ehipassiko opanaiko paccattam veditambo vinnyo viti. Supatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho ujupatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho nyaya patipanno bhagavato savaka sangho samici patipanno bhagavato savaka sangho yadidam chattari purisa yugani atta purisa puggala esa savaka sangho ahuneyo pahuneyo dakhineyo anjali karaneyo anuttaram punyakettam lokasati. Tena sajja vajjena patu tvam ratanatayam. Tena sajja vajjena patu tvam ratanatayam. Tena sajja vajjena patu tvam ratanatayam. අරණීය මත්ත කුසලේන යන්තං සන්තම් පදං අபிසමෙච්ච සම්භෝ උජුච සුජුච සුවචෝ චස්ස මුදු අනතිමානි සන්තුස්සකෝච සුබරෝච අප්පකිච්චෝච සල්ලවුකවුත්තේ සම්තින්වයෝච නිපකෝච අප්පගබ්බෝ කුලේසු අනනුගිත්තෝ නචකුත්තං සමාචරේ කිංචයේන විඤ්ඤෝ පරේ උපවදෙය්‍යොන් සුඛිනෝ කේමිනෝන්තු සබ්බේ සත්තා භවන්තු සුඛිතත්තා යේකේචි පාන භූතන්ති තසාවා තාවරාවා අනවසේසා දීඝාවා යේමාන්තාවා මච්චිමාරස්ස කානුකතුලා දිට්ඨාවා යේව අද්දිට්ඨා යේච දුරේ වසන්ති අවිදුරේ භූතාවා සම්භවේසීවා සබ්බේ සත්තා භවන්තු සුඛිතන්තා නපරෝ පරන්නිකම්බේත නාති මඤ්ඤේත කත්තතිනම් කංචේ ව්‍යාරෝසනා පටිඝ සංඥානාඤ්ඤ මඤ්ඤස්ස දුක්ඛ මිච්ඡේය මාතායතා නියම් පුත්තං ආයුසා ඒක පුත්ත මනුරක්ඛේ එවම්පි සබ්බ භූතේසු මාන සම්භාවයේ අපරිමාණම් මෙත්තං ච සබ්බ ලෝකස්මින් මාන සම්භාවයේ අපරිමාණං බුද්ධං අදෝච තිරියං ච අසම්බාධං අවේරං අසපත්තං දිට්ඨං චරං සින්නෝ වාසයානෝ වායාවතස්ස විගත මිද්දෝ ඒතං සතින් අදිත්තේය බ්‍රහ්මමේතං විහාරං නිදමාහූ දිට්ඨිංච අනුපගම්ම සීලවා දස්සනේන සම්පන්නෝ කාමේසු විනේයගේ දන්නයි ජාතු ගම්මසේයං පුනරේතේන සච්ච වජ්ජේන සොත්තිතේ හෝතු සම්පදා ඒතේන සච්ච වජ්ජේන සබ්බ රෝගෝ විනස්සතු ඒතේන සච්ච වජ්ජේන හෝතු තේ ජය මංගලං සබ්බීතියෝ විවච්ඡන්තු සබ්බ රෝගෝ විනස්සතු මාතේ භවත්වන්තරායෝ සුඛී දීඝායුකෝ භව. Power of the chanting, our IBAA, Venerable Mahasangha and rest of the members, and we all coordinately making special blessing to our Excellency, our Ambassador, Rodney Pereira and Mrs. Pereira, and staff and CM and rest of the staff and their families and our devotees who came over here. We keep our loving kindness, Karaniya Metsutta blessing, power of that blessing. May you have beautiful, wonderful, successful, happy and peaceful future. Having the thought we recited, may you be well and happy. Now,
아라밀다 시묘교로 개궁도 일체국의 가리라 색구리 공공구리 색색즉시 공공즉시 해우상행식 역구여시 사리자 시제왕 황굴생굴멸굴 고부정부정굴 감시고공정무생무소사행식무한 이비열세나의 무세성양미 족법 무한계대지 무의식계 무명영 무무명진내지 무노사영 무 진무고진 멸도무지영무득 이무오느 오리 갈타의 간야바라밀사우 무신무가에 무가에 곤무유공 원리전노몽상구경열반 삼세지불의 반야바라밀가 고드간욕타라 삼야삼보리 고지간야바라밀가 시대신주 시대명주 시모상주 시모등등주 등제일체고진실분호 설반야바라밀 타주 즉설주 알라제 아제 승아제 무지사방 아제 바라 승아제 무지사방 아제 바라 승아제 무지사방.
Before I request His Excellency to come and give the concluding remarks, and we have some small token of gifts for both the ambassador from our very poor IBAA, so kindly accept them, sirs. One of the things that I'd like to point out, the entire blessings of the Parita that Bhante Uparatana chanted so beautifully. At minimum, I request that His Excellency, the ambassador, the DCM, the minister, and all the staff of this embassy, wonderful embassy. I come from India originally, and my southern neighbor, we look upon Sri Lanka with enormous affection, a great, great nation. May you all, every one of you, be blessed for a minimum, I'm saying minimum, of 99 years, 11 months, and 31 days. If you want more, I will sign on it, so no problem, Father Rooney is always there. So with that, I would request His Excellency, the ambassador, to come forward and make some concluding remarks as I get this ready.
අටගස්ත රූපරාජ්‍ය ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේ ප්‍රමුඛ මහා සංඝරත්නය අවසරයි. Members of the Venerable Clergy, Reverend Father, dear friends from the IBAA, the doors of the embassy will always be open for these discussions. This is part and parcel of our heritage, our very proud heritage. So today, let me take you through a little bit of history, starting with the most recent history of just a few days ago, Kalyan. As was informed, I had the opportunity of presenting the official credentials from the President of my country, His Excellency Mike Pence, to the President of the United States of America just a few days ago. And this, you can see, is the official folder which contains the letters requesting the President of the United States to permit me to function as the ambassador of Sri Lanka. It's in all the three national languages. But I want to go a little bit behind this because on the other side of the folder, I have these images which I presented to the President of the United States. Since the President of the United States is a builder, has been in the construction industry from the time he was a young person, I wanted to show the proud heritage of Sri Lanka. And I got these two images printed and presented to him, and with a very brief explanation, because the one on top is the Lowa Mahapaya, it's in Anuradhapura, and this has an incredible structure. This has a history of more than 2,300 years, and it is a structure that has 40 times 40 pillars, a total of 1,600. And it had several stories, and very importantly, about 1,000 rooms to accommodate 9,000 Buddhist monks. So this is a structure we are extremely proud of as our heritage. And I want to show the President of the United States that we have that very proud and rich heritage. And the second structure is the Jetavana. This is 400 feet in height, and this until recently was the world's tallest stupa, and very importantly, in the ancient world, which is considered the period before the 20th century, was the third tallest structure in the world after the two pyramids in Egypt. So I want to show that this is our rich heritage. This is something today, when we promote tourism, the city of Anuradhapura is at the top of the list. But when it comes to our Buddhist heritage, our Buddhist culture, where our Venerable Mahasangha has come all the way from Sri Lanka to propagate this very important Dharma, this is the beginning. So I wanted to show this to the American government and the American leader to convey the message that we have a rich history, we have a rich tradition, we have the Buddhist philosophy in our hearts, and it is with that spirit that Sri Lanka believes in non-violence, believes in the metta, compassion to all, to work together in this country. And when I fast forward to the more recent period, having studied the history of Buddhism in the United States, I found that the first Buddhist temple was established in San Francisco around 1850, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a monumental event. And when we fast forward 100 years later, to 1951 to be precise, there was a very important international conference that took place in San Francisco. And this is where I think I want to conclude with my message also. And at this conference, the topic of discussion was how to address post-war Japan as to how that country should be dealt with in terms of peace building and bringing that country into the group of nations. And there was a lot of discussion, and this is a subject I probably had in my mind as a very small child, which probably led me to standing here because of our great heritage and from what I learned from the former president of the Republic of Sri Lanka, His Excellency J.R. Jayawardena, who happened to be my neighbor. And as a small child, I remember listening to him and explaining how he undertook this journey to Japan by ship on his way to San Francisco for the peace conference. And which led to me as an adult doing my postgraduate research on peace building, and I used the Japanese peace treaty as a model, as an example. And when you go through the records of that conference, you could clearly see the amount of non-compliance of many of the important countries at the time in trying to find a way forward. There was a lot of anger, there was a lot of division, there was no consensus. And when you go through the records, which I painstakingly did, you come to a paragraph of the statement made by the Honorable J.R. Jayawardena, who was the representative of Sri Lanka at the San Francisco Peace Conference in 1951. And this was his message. He said, and I quote, "We believe in the words of the great teacher, whose message has ennobled the lives of countless millions in Asia, that hatred ceases not by hatred, but by love. It is the message of the Buddha, the great teacher, the founder of Buddhism, which spread a wave of humanism through South Asia, Burma, Laos, Cambodia, Siam, today's Thailand, Indonesia, and Ceylon, Sri Lanka, and also northwards through the Himalayas into Tibet, China, and finally Japan, which bound us together for hundreds of years with a common culture and heritage. This common culture still exists, as I found on my visit to Japan last week on my way to attend this conference. And from the leaders of Japan, ministers of state as well as private citizens, from their priests in the temples, I gathered the impression that the common people of Japan are still influenced by the shadow of that great teacher of peace and wish to follow. We must give them that opportunity. And I think this is such a wise statement today as a diplomat. When I go through various issues, working with my colleagues in other countries, we always wonder why there is so much hate, there's so much violence. And Sri Lanka was not immune to that. All of you are aware of the terrible destruction that happened just 2 months ago, which actually made me very angry, very sad, but at the same time, really motivated and dedicated to build peace. And this is the reason why I would love to do any event like this at any given time. Because we need to find, as I think around the table in this room, we have very learned monks, reverends, scholars. I think we need to find where we have gone wrong. There are these beautiful words, I think, that are present in so many texts. I myself, I'm from a so-called mixed family when it comes to religion, because my father was a devout Catholic and my mother a devout Buddhist. And I still remember growing up with two wonderful grandmothers, both of whom lived until the mid-90s of their lives. And how my mother's mother always talked about Buddhism, the Buddhist way of life. And that was on my right side. On my left side was my other grandmother, who always had prayers, the Christian prayers, Bible in her hand, and the rosary on the other, always talking about that. And they got along so beautifully. So I'm very fortunate, Sri Lanka, to get both sides. I'm enriched by these both beautiful philosophies and the texts. And as my father took us, his family of kids, around the country, I'm one of the very few Sri Lankans of that generation that I'm very proud to say I have been to all parts of Sri Lanka, all corners of Sri Lanka because of my father. And he used to say, look at the mountains, look at the clouds, and see, and look at what you can really get from that. The religion is like that. You can see the raindrops hitting the mountains in Sri Lanka, in Sri Lankan context. The mountains convert those drops into waterfalls. Waterfalls become streams, large lakes, and then it flows down to the sea. And while it's doing that little journey from the top of the mountains to the sea, there are millions or thousands of people who use it, fresh water, drinking, cleaning themselves, farming. There are the animals that they keep in their farms, their kids, and then the industries around it that use water. So everyone along the way uses it. And in Sri Lanka, to make a complex geographical story short, we have 4 main rivers that starts from the hilltop, the mountain top of Sri Lanka, the rainforest, in 4 different directions. And as my father would always tell us on those long journeys in the car, he said, the religion can be like that. Every person who lives by a particular river, say the first river, the Mahaveli, they will say, oh, our river is the greatest. It gives us the best of everything. Somebody in the other river, they will say the same thing. But if you really go up, if you're wise, if you're a learner, and you look from a different angle, you will see it's pretty much the same. Maybe the terrain is different. So this was the message that I grew up with. And I pay tribute to him because I would not be here if not for my ancestors. And of course, which includes the ancestors of my family. And the question is, with all of these great thinking, learning texts, why is there violence? Why can't we get along? You see, people, I think the challenge is for all of us. The people who come to the church, the temple, the kovil, the mosques. I think, as the saying goes, we are preaching to the choir. I think by and large, everybody understands good from evil. But what about the hundreds and thousands of people who are outside, who don't make that journey? How do we get through to them? I think as a diplomat, this is my idea also. I want to go around this country, meet as many members of my community, and try to bring them together. Let us work together, because this is going to be the never-ending quest. And I think all religious teachers pretty much have said this philosophy. You have to do it. You cannot isolate people, you cannot put people away. We have to engage everyone. How do we do that? I think that remains our challenge. So I want to bring this message because I'm starting work here and I will need the support of all of you, my venerable monks who are always there with the embassy, and my staff, and I thank them for putting this event together. But let us find the way and let us work together so that the message resonates in the hearts and minds of everyone, not just that limited crowd who will come to the Sunday service or the Poya Day Pinkam, as we call it in Sri Lanka. So let us find new ways, new avenues, new tools, new thinking, whatever that is there, to reach to those masses and create the message of loving kindness, the importance of these beautiful lessons that we learn today. I thank you all for coming to this service.
Your Excellency, we request that you see the small gift that we have from our Venerable Vice Chairman, sir. I request now the Deputy Chief of Mission, the Honorable Mr. Sniper, to come forward and receive our small gift. We have two last items here, namely the vote of thanks, which I would request, actually, since I've been doing all MC work, our Senior Vice President, Dr. Savanton, to come and give the vote of thanks on behalf of IBAA. He's my boss, I always tell him that, the IBAA. He tells me I'm fired, so. So one of the things, we have gone to the Burmese Embassy. The Burmese Embassy people were so wonderful. We have been to the Embassy of Laos as well. So we want to go to all our Buddhist countries, and we go to the 50 temples throughout the year. Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. So as His Excellency put it, Sri Lanka, Burma, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, China, Korea, Japan, Tibet, Mongolia. Don't forget Mongolia. Mongolia is very important too. It's a Buddhist nation. And also the Kalmyk region of the Russian Federation. Vladimir Putin, Russia recognizes Buddhism as one of its countries because there is Buddhists right there as well. So some of the Cossacks are Vajrayana Buddhists. So with that, thank you, and Dr. Tunulze, and group photo, last but not least, otherwise we'll have a meltdown in the IBA.
This is unannounced, so I just talk of my address. My deepest gratitude to the Tribal Chair that make up my mind today. my life to follow the teaching of the Buddha. My deep respect to Mahasangha and His Excellency Ambassador from Sri Lanka and my friends Buddhists and ladies and gentlemen. I want to take this opportunity to give you thanks for allowing IBAA to come and perform the Buddhist study at this occasion. It's just a young organization, just about over a year, almost 2 years now, and we try to get all the Buddhists together. As you know, in America, there's a melting pot, all kind of religion in this country, and we have a Buddhist organization, but it seems that we are so spread, so independent, so we need some organization to link together and to work together for the benefits of Buddha. And I also take this opportunity to thank Father Rooney. He's a good friend of Buddhists, and we can say he's a Buddhist Catholic. Everywhere we went, and we see Father Rooney, even at the Vatican. We saw, we worked together, and last I want to thank His Excellency Ambassador again for allowing us to come, and I want to promise that we will work together and for the benefit of Buddha, and we don't forget you, Mr. Ambassador, that we want to come here again. It's actually a good place and a good reception, and we never forget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chun. Before now it's really, we have to conclude. The kind minister from the Embassy of Sri Lanka just came to me, and it's so nice of them. They said dinner is offered to all the invitees at this embassy, so we thank her for that. And again, we like to thank everybody on behalf of IBA. All the embassy staff have worked so very hard on this. Last but not least, Father, you have to give the final blessing. You are an extraordinary friend. You can sit there and do that, please. Yes. And I have to recognize two other people, and it's my fault. Ms. Sharon Goya, the Tibetan Capital Area Tibetan Buddhist Association. She's there to the one we're going to have. And also Mr. Quang Zu of the Vietnamese Buddhist community. He too is my friend. Anytime we go to a Vietnamese temple, he is our liaison officer. So thank you.
Well, I'll do kind of a version of our night prayer, which we would say tonight. Protect us, Lord, as we stay awake. Watch over us as we sleep. That awake we may keep watch with you, and asleep rest in your peace. Now let your servant go in peace. Your word has been fulfilled. Our eyes have seen the fulfillment which you have prepared in the sight of every people, a light to reveal you to the nations and the glory of your people. Let us pray. Be with us throughout this night. When day comes, may we rise from sleep to rejoice in you who live and reign forever and ever.
Thank you, Bob. The group photo where the Mahasangha can be seated as they are, and we can be either the front or the back, as the case may be, the lay people. So let's do that.